I want to see if I can pronounce your name properly. Is that Geraldise? Is it Geraldise or Ow? I did it. Okay, good. All right. You got to give yourself small wins, okay? You got to give yourself small wins. All right, guys. Tonight we are in chapter 3. Let me turn down my volume just a bit. Okay. We are in chapter 3. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Just a quick recap.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yo he cogido la mala costumbre de que si yo me voy y la dejo sola.
All right. So your grades are done. If you don't have a grade on something, it's just because maybe you turned it in late or haven't seen it yet or whatever. But for the most part, it should be done. Please make sure that we are reading assignments thoroughly. I did have a few people, and not necessarily this class because I teach 3 different classes on this, but I started to see some people like not do their long-term goals properly, didn't give end dates and things like that. So I did put a note there. And then watch the discussion boards. You only have discussions once a week, but and again, not necessarily this class, but I'm just giving the announcement to everyone. Make sure you're following the word count. Most people do great about that, but that's the main thing. And please remember that your signed resumes are due this Thursday. So make sure you're checking in with Career Services on those resumes. All right. So last week we talked about personal brand statements a little bit, and I said that I would be introducing it this week. What we did do is we did our first introduction to resume writing, even though most of us have written resumes. And what I pointed out to you is that on your resume at the top, you typically have a summary, qualification, or profile, and that profile you could use in various ways. Now, for those of us that have never written a resume before, you don't have one currently, the way that you write those summaries is utilizing what you know already, well, what you obviously know about yourself, your skills, your where it is you would like to go, and you try to come up with like a couple sentences that you put up there. Some people call that your personal brand statement, right? Others call it, like I do, a summary of all of your abilities, which people will see once they read through your resume. Essentially, that summary is a brief synopsis of your personal brand, right? What is your personal brand? Well, it is who you are, is your reputation, your professional reputation, because if you take all your skills, your technical skills, your soft skills, your personality, your values, what people know about you as a professional, that is your personal brand, whether you realize it or not. You know, as you continue in your career, you will be building this personal brand more and more, and it will become increasingly important as you build this brand about yourself, right? As you continue to promote yourself in that regard. But so let me go. How do you how do you create this personal brand, right? So one thing is to make sure that when you're creating this personal brand, um, and when I say create personal brand, I'm talking about not just what you write, but really who you become. Like if you think of someone, if I were to say, uh, I don't know. Nowadays, you everybody's brand seems to be tarnished. I was going to say the Pope or Obama or I don't know anybody who has this image of Martin Luther King. There you go. Even though nowadays there's the Martin Luther King files, but if you were to say like Martin Luther King, right? He had a personal brand, and everybody would typically say the same thing about a Martin Luther King, right? So not that you're going to try to be Martin Luther King, but in your career, what will your brand become? What will people say about you from one job to the next? And it's also about building your reputation, especially as you get into your industries. Like I said, your industries are very small right now. When you're not in a profession, the industries are big because they're so vast. Let's say if I were an accountant, and I hadn't decided to go into like tax accounting, even if I was just an accountant, you know, the accounting field in Central Florida is not that big, right? Maybe in Florida it's a little bigger. Maybe if I go Southeast region, it's even broader. But for the most part, the accounting field is the accounting field. It's very different from any other parts of finance. And then if I become a tax accountant, the field is even smaller. So it's safe to say once if I decide to become a tax accountant, in Central Florida, eventually over time, I would get to know all the tax accountants in Central Florida. I would get to know what companies deal with tax accountants in Central Florida. So my reputation would start to get out there, if you will, and people will start to get to know you. So you really do need to be thinking about, okay, what is my brand? And as I move through my industry, what will people say about me? So part of that branding is thinking about what makes you authentic, what makes you different. Can someone, if someone spoke your name, what would they think? What would they say? Oh, Sarah, Terry, yeah, that's that subject matter expert that's really, really good at electrical. I worked with him 5 years ago. And somebody that worked with you yesterday, oh yeah, yeah, he is really good. He is a subject matter expert. People come to know you as that subject matter expert. That's really great if your brand starts to permeate throughout your industry and everybody is saying the same thing about you. That's when your brand is starting to take off. And when other people are promoting you, that's when you have a really good brand. So, yes, it's early, but you really need to start thinking about what your brand is. As you start to develop your personal brand statement, some people even consider that summary on your resume part of your personal brand statement. But your personal brand statement will become very important. What is your personal brand? What is your personal brand statement? Well, it is a collection of your experiences. Some people even call it a slogan or a tagline that you can use. The reason why they call it a slogan or a tagline is they say, if you were to take that summary, for example, on your resume, and most summaries are like 3 sentences, and you can get it down to one sentence. And the reason why we say use your resume is because it already has a summary of who you are. If you can bring that down to one sentence, you can throw that on a LinkedIn page. You can put that in a cover letter. You can put it on a social media account. And what will start to happen? Well, your LinkedIn page will have this personal brand statement that looks very similar to what your resume is saying if they saw your summary. And what we're going to also talk about is, and I'll come back to this in a second, your personal commercial. And your personal commercial is what you physically say about yourself. So let's recap. That means that what I physically say about myself, which is my commercial, we also call it an elevator pitch, matches what is on my LinkedIn, which is my personal brand statement. And it also matches what is on my resume, which is my summary or qualifications or profile about myself. And if you'll notice, everywhere you go, you're kind of saying the same thing. And that's how you're starting to promote yourself in your business. Does that make sense? So you may say, okay, well, how do I create this personal statement? If I already have my resume, that's a great starting point because if you have that summary, even if you didn't write it or career services, somebody helped you write it, then you can pull from there. But if you don't have that, then what do I do? Well, what you're going to do is start with your own personal reputation, the one you want to have or the one you currently have. And think about the hard skills and soft skills that you really want to promote, whether you want to be a subject matter expert or you want to be known as you know somebody that is really good at, let's say if I were in the VA program and I wanted to be someone that dealt with reptiles, like, okay, this is Florida, that's why I'm using that, right? I want to specialize in reptiles, right? And I want to become the subject matter expert in that. Maybe I may start building my skills around that. Maybe I may want to start promoting myself as someone that deals with exotic animals because I know that's the road I want to go down. Maybe you've already done some volunteering in that, right? I'm just using that as an example of starting to think about, okay, do I want to brand myself as this? Is that a field that I want to go down? How do I craft that? But at any rate, take the hard and soft skills that you currently have and try to come up with a statement about yourself, like one sentence. Where do you put it? Like I said, if it's not already on your resume, your cover letter, your social media accounts, all these places should have your statement. Here are some statements that they have in chapter 3. One person said that they were a creative problem solver who combines math and science. Obviously, they're in some type of technical field. A writer talks about their ability to blend communication and critical thinking. Someone else going down a little bit, a product development coordinator with an impeccable time management skills. If you notice what's happening, the person is talking about, their product development, which is technical, but they're also talking about some of their soft skills. We know how important that is to people. A production manager who implements both soft skills to continually improve client-based customer directed deliverables. Okay, that's a mouthful, but we get a sense of who this person is. And these would all be really great slogans or taglines to put like on a LinkedIn account, for example. If you were to go on your resume, maybe you add an extra sentence or two, but they will be really great profiles to also put on a resume or a cover letter. So, how then does this commercial? Now, how do I go and pitch myself? What does that mean? Well, clearly, nobody is going to walk around saying, "Hi, I'm a creative problem solver who can combine mathematical skills and science." No, that's good to read, it's not good to say. So, what is a commercial and when do you use it? Well, quite simply, when you're introducing yourself to people. I know it may seem a little stuffy, and the corporate types are always doing this, but guess what? Like I told you before, we're all in the corporate types. If you work for a company, you're a corporate type, and you're going to have to get used to introducing yourself in a professional manner. And so you'll need this commercial. Back in the day, they used to call it an elevator pitch because if you worked in, corporate America and you worked in one of those skyrise buildings, all the people with all the money are at the top and all the little people are at the bottom. So the only time you ever got to interact with the boss is when you were in the elevator. And they said that was the perfect time to make a pitch for yourself, maybe a promotion, maybe a new position, maybe, this is the only time this guy's going to get to see you or this girl's going to get to see you. How do you promote yourself to this person? And that's what the elevator pitch is all about. Introducing yourself, qualifying yourself, and saying what it is that you want. Now, are you going to meet people throughout your career, not just some boss in an elevator? Maybe you bump into someone that can be influential to your career at an airport. Maybe you go to a conference and you bump into someone. Maybe you have a meeting with someone. Maybe you want to connect with someone on LinkedIn. How do you go about doing that? That is where your commercial comes in. It doesn't have to be big. It needs to be quick, succinct, and to the point. Again, introduce yourself, summarize who you are, and then tell somebody what you want. Everybody has stranger danger. Nobody wants some weird person walking up to them and not saying what they want. Can you imagine somebody walking up to you and just start talking? Hi, I'm Cynthia, and I'm a productive problem solver with blah 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 blah. You're gonna be like, this person is nuts. So at the end of the day, you always have to tell people what you want. So we're gonna talk about what that means, because the statement is what goes in between your commercial. After you introduce yourself, you make the statement, and then you say what you want, and those three elements together becomes your commercial. So in the book, it kind of gives you an example of that. It says here on the left-hand side, this could be your personal brand statement, right? A marketing professional who is dedicated to creating jaw-dropping promotions. That reads very well, right? Makes perfect sense. But how would this person introduce themselves? Like, you're not going to say that in the elevator because that's weird. So what you're first going to do is you're going to introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Susan Rakowski, an assistant marketing product manager. Uh-oh, right? She's giving her title with a degree in marketing. You can or can't, you don't have to add that. If you want to, you can. She even went on to say, I'm located in a greater Houston area, right? And look at what she's saying, and looking for a career in advertising with an advertising agency. Now, you could have stopped right there. You could have stopped right there. She introduced herself, she qualified herself, and she said what she was looking for. In an elevator, that would have been perfect. Now, let's say Susan is, at a conference, she can go on to say, my skills include writing with the attention to a target audience based in demographics, blah, blah, blah. You see what she's saying. I'm also proficient in blah, blah, blah. That's really great if Susan has some more time. But if Susan is in an elevator and she only has 30 seconds, that top half is perfect. Hi, my name is, this is my qualification. This is what I want. That's how you introduce yourself in a business setting if you want something. Now, I'm not saying go up and introduce yourself that way if you're not wanting the person to give you something, like take your business card or introduce you to someone or to give you information on something. But if you only have a few minutes with someone, the point is to get to the point when you introduce yourself. Does that make sense? I always feel like I'm rambling. Am I being too wordy with that? Give me a quick thumbs up if that makes sense. All right, very good. I always feel like I over explain. All right, so that is what that's about. All right, the second example here, it says a compassionate healthcare professional who has the skills, knowledge, and commitment needed to help patients, right? We see that. That's good, right? What does the person do? Hi, I'm Samuel. He goes on to be a little bit more, to explain it a little bit better. I'm a physical therapist with over 5 years of experience in the field. I specialize in ABC. He's kind of giving us hard and soft skills. I am looking for a position within the tri-state area. Boom. He could have stopped right there. You see my point? Because with the introduction of a commercial, I say introduce yourself, qualify yourself, tell somebody what you want, right? If I walk up to you, hi, I'm Cynthia. I have over 19 years experience in higher education. I saw your company is looking for a new adjunct professor. I would love to pass my information along, right? So you know right away within the first 5 to 10 seconds what I want. You're like, oh, okay, the person's not nuts. She's looking for information, or she's looking to give me something. Does that make sense? Sounds good? All right. So it is so important that you practice. Practice makes perfect. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you now, the real practice is when you're going to get out there and you just have to do this, and you're going to be doing this so much throughout your career that it will become second nature. I've been introducing myself so much. I feel like I am my own publicist at this point, which technically you are. So you'll get used to doing it, but in the interim, you have to practice. And that is what we want you to do today. We want you to practice introducing yourselves. And so what we're going to have you do for both your personal brand statement and your assignment for today are going to go together. In your um, in your participation question, we're going to have you try to create your personal brand statement. And for your assignment, we want you to practice it either through audio or video. So here's what you're going to do. And we talked about checking your grades, so we have to do that. But in your participation question, you are going to come up with a personal brand statement. Now, if you already have a resume and you have that summary of qualifications, give me a thumbs up if you have that at the top of your resume. If you have your resume, whether you've given it to them and you're waiting to get it back or not. Who has like a profile, qualification summary at the top of their resume? Most of that is probably what, 3 sentences, right? Most of you guys have that. That's good. I want you to pare it down into one sentence, because you're going to start with hi, my name is, that's a sentence. You're going to make your qualifications a sentence. So that's what I want you to pare down to one sentence. And then your third sentence is going to be some hypothetical of what you want. I don't care if it's I want a job. I want you to pass on information. I would love to talk to you about your company, just some type of closing, right? So, and then you can make it can be fake, but your one statement qualification could be anything. You could say, I mean, it can be really quick, like, I have over X amount of years in this, right? You don't have to dig into those hard and soft skills unless you want to. Unless you want to practice that, do it. But I like to always summarize. Listen, I have over 5 years experience and in the technical industry, focusing in on this and that. Maybe you don't have a lot of electrical, but maybe you have some construction, maybe you have some other type of complementary skill that you want to pinpoint, right? Again, think about how you want to promote yourself. And I want you to just try to create one sentence. Maybe you already have it in your summary, even better, and then close out with something. Now, that is going to be your participation question. I want to see this personal brand statement. That's just the one sentence in the middle. You got it? Do not confuse that with the assignment for today, which is the elevator pitch, which includes your name and then what you want on the back end. So your statement is just the thing that goes in the middle. Do we understand? That's all I need for your participation question. And then the elevator pitch, you're going to add your name and an ask. Now, when you go to turn in your assignment, you may not have ever paid attention to it, but it has what? It has the file upload, text entry, and after text entry, it says audio or video. I don't know which one comes first. So you can click audio, you can click video, and you can do it right there. You don't have to do it on your phone and try to upload it. You don't have to do it on your video computer and download the movie and then try to upload it. Now, for those of us that are a little bit more techie inclined, if you want to do it that way, please do. Please do. Do not let me keep you from it. But for those of you that are like, listen, I barely am getting through this thing, and you just want to click that button where it says audio, do that too. Do whatever is easiest for you. You don't have to memorize it. You can just read it right from the paper. Don't overstress yourself. All right? Why do we want you guys to do this? Well, remember, you got two things happening. One, right now, you should be doing informational interviews. Who's done their informational interview yet with the person in your field? Anybody did that yet? Okay, a few people have done it. Well, oh, quite a few. Good, I love it, I love it. For those of us that have not, this would be a great opener, right? even if you know the person, still, whether you know somebody or not, who likes somebody to pick up the phone and call them and don't tell them what they want. So, and also with the informational interview, you should be leading that conversation, right? Imagine if somebody comes to you and like, "Hey, Brett, can I ask you a couple questions about ABC?" Brett's going to say, "Sure." And then Brett's going to look at you and say, "Okay, you're leading this thing, right?" So in the informational interview, you're the one leading it. So it's always good to have a opener. If it were me, let's say I was wanting to be the dean of a school from being a faculty member, I may say, "Hey, Dean Edwards, can I talk to you, about, becoming a dean?" Dean Edwards would say yes. When I go to Dean Edwards, I'll be like, so I'm not gonna say hi, my name is Cynthia because the person knows me, but I am gonna say, "Thank you, Dean Edwards, for taking the time to meet with me. As you know, whether they know or not, I have over 19 years of experience in higher education. I'm looking to become a dean, and so I was wanting to know if you can give me some pointers on what I should do." Right? I'm still able to use this commercial to talk to the dean, right? Because, like I said, it doesn't always have to be you meeting some CEO in an elevator. It's whoever you're meeting that you're talking to about your career. You have some type of opener. Does that make sense? So that's how I would use it at my informational interview. Um, I would use it at my mock interview. You're going to talk to career services. "Oh, hey, Sarah, thank you so much for to meeting with me today." Sarah may say, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." "So as you know, my name is so and so. I have over 19 years of experience in higher education. I'm looking to. I'm using it at my mock interview." Like I said, you're gonna get so used to your commercial, you're gonna become your own publicist. So that is why we want you to practice. Does everyone understand? I feel like you guys are like, "Somebody help me give a thumbs up." Okay. Well, my friends, if we don't have any other questions, I feel like we're getting out of here earlier and earlier. I don't know if I'm just rambling or if I say this too many times in a day. Not sure if I went over this at the top of the hour, but I do want to say, please make sure you're checking your grades. Um, One thing I don't want is get into week 4 and be like, "Where's my grade? What do I need? What do I have? What am I missing?" No, 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 no. De nada, por favor. You need to look, check your own grades. Make sure you have everything in. If I grade your assignment and I leave you a note, please make sure you are reading the note. Please do not get to the end of this course. And I'm going to tell you, when we get into week 4 and it gets really tight, we have a short week on Wednesday because there's a holiday. Miss Taylor is not going to be as flexible as she is in the first 1 and 2 weeks because we have to wind down, we have to get your grades in, and we start the very next day. So I'm starting my next class on Friday as soon as I'm done with y'all on Thursday night at midnight. So I love you, but I got to leave you. So please, please, please make sure that you stay on top of your work and not make Miss Taylor have to tell you no bueno in week 4. You cannot turn anything in week 1. Yes? We understand? Yes, Miss Taylor? All right. I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording if we don't have any questions. Let me see.